Welcome to the CIPHE Water Treatment Seminar. This is in fact an inaugural event. It's our first ever in 130 years history of CIPHE, and it's very much part of our continuous improvement program. I'd also like to thank AD and their global services for facilitating the event this evening. I'd also just like to point out that any questions that you may have, you have the facility, as you should see in terms of the communication document, to actually ask questions, also via Twitter. And the address for that is hashtag CIPHE Live. So please continue to operate your questions. Now, there's a lot of very exciting prospects ahead in terms of CIPHE. We've got a new management team, and it's developing extremely well, of which I'm very pleased to say that we've got in excess of 300 years experience in terms of the industry. I personally am a served apprentice, carried out my City and Guilds in plumbing, heating, and also in the gas industry as well. So we're joined by a number of my colleagues this evening from CIPHE, but more about those later on. What we'd like to do this evening is to focus, as part of our continuous improvement program, on the importance of water treatment. And we're very fortunate to have this evening with us to actually take us on that journey, Dr. Neil Watson, ADE's Global Technical Director. Neil, you're very welcome, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
And over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Everybody here on this webinar should know by now that best practice water treatment is essential for high-performance heating systems. You would have heard that message from us, water treatment manufacturers, at least 100 times. But I just want to take a minute to quote from the April edition of FAM News this year to see what some of the boiler manufacturers are saying. Firstly, looking to John Phillips, Head of Product Management at Baxi. So what John is saying is, no matter how effective a boiler is and what sophisticated controls are added, a heating engineer must ensure that the system water is clean and chemically treated, even if a brand new installation with new pipework, otherwise the energy and fuel savings won't be recognised. He goes on to say, water treatment products protect the life of a boiler. If the heating engineer doesn't clean, flush and inhibit a system adequately, a boiler could fail in a matter of weeks, potentially damaging the reputation of the heating engineer and the boiler manufacturer. But it's not just John of Baxi saying this. I turn the page and find that Martin Bridges, the Director of Marketing and Technical Support at Worcester, is also adding to the debate. Martin says, increasingly refined components and smaller water passages mean that it doesn't take a great amount of sediment from an unclean heating system to clog up or restrict the waterways in a modern condensing boiler. Martin goes on to say, once the initial system flush has been performed, adding a system filter will complement this process by collecting any contaminants that may not have been removed during the flushing process. This will help to ensure the long-term protection of an appliance. So there we have it. It's no longer just the water treatment manufacturers that are telling you that water treatment is best practice, but it's a message right the way across the industry. So I just want to take a little bit of time to help you understand how we got there. And the first thing I'm going to do is to step us all back 24 years to 1992. Now, back in 1992, what car recommended as their car of the year the Rover Metro? Mobile phones are just about starting, and if you were lucky and you had a big enough pocket, you could buy yourself a Motorola phone, such as this one here, with its wonderful dot matrix screen, no text, I'm afraid, and a whole 1 hour of talk time. If you're smart enough, you'd have got yourself the latest computer, which was the Amiga 500 Plus, not the 500, because the 500 Plus stepped you up from 500K up to a whole 1 meg of computing storage. Why is 92 important? Well, 1992 is the first year that British Standards released a code of practice for treatment of water in domestic hot water heating systems. This is BS 7593. So back then, what were they saying? Well, firstly, they were saying that they recognized the need to clean and flush a heating system. Secondly, they asked you to consider the effect of different water types on a heating system, whether that be soft water or hard water. Thirdly, but most important, is that they actually left the choice of whether or not to use an inhibitor to you guys, to the installers. It was only discretionary. It wasn't included within the code of practice. So we've moved on from that point, surely, haven't we? Well, I guess all you guys have, because you're sitting here watching a best practice water treatment webinar, and I guess if you haven't moved on from that, then you wouldn't be sitting here now. But actually, many systems installed today are still installed not with 1992 recommendations, but actually pre-1992 recommendations. So, in fact, it's actually quite common to find that someone will fit a new boiler onto an existing heating system, just simply allow for any energy efficiency losses. They won't bother to clean the system, and then just repair and maintain that as and when it's necessary. Now, all you guys, professional heating installers, will know the outcomes of that quite clearly. System blockages leading to high operation costs, system component damage, costly repairs, but probably most important of all, the heating isn't going to be available for your customer as and when they need it. So let's jump forward to 2006. So here we are 14 years later, and what car are now advising you to go out and spend your money on a Vauxhall Astra? Fujitsu had this marvelous PC with a whole 1 meg of memory, and fortunately the Nokia 1600 slips a little bit easier into your pocket. This is the year when they made their next amendment to BS 7593. So what did they then bring in? First of all, they proposed that power flushing was the recommended best practice for cleaning a central heating system. Now think of that. Power flushing was proposed as the best practice back in 2006, 10 years ago. Use of an inhibitor is now recommended within this code of practice, but it's still necessary to consider the different types of water that you may be filling your heating system up with. Well, we all know that power flushing, the recommended best practice, is still used very much today. And if you power flush a system, absolutely you'll be able to get the system clean. However, you have a high purchase price for the equipment in order to do the job. You can spend upwards of 5 hours on site to undertake a clean in a normal domestic building. And of course, the more time you spend on site, the higher the cost is going to be that you need to pass on to your customer. You have high water usage due to the dynamic flushing process involved within power flushing. This is where you're constantly filling up the system as you flush the dirty water to drain. And you have risk of damage to sanitary ware. Again, this isn't recommended practice, but it's actually quite common to see that somebody will stick the outflow from a power flush down the nearest available entry to drain, which is very often the customer's sanitary ware. So let's jump right forward to the present day, 2016. What car are now suggesting you go out and buy yourself an Audi A4? Comfortable, sleek, economical, what a great vehicle. You've probably now got yourself a laptop in front of you, which has now got maybe up to 500 gig of computing power, and a Galaxy or an iPhone, which not only is a phone, but it's now a camera as well. And your iPhone will have a lot more computing power than the computer you had back in 2006. And let's face it, if we were relying on the technology we had in 2006, we wouldn't be able to have this webinar today. So where do we look today for best practice in heating systems? Well, the first place we can look is in the Domestic Building Services Compliance Guide for Part L of Building Regulations. The interesting point is that now this is starting to talk about water treatment within regulation rather than within recommendation. So let's have a look at what they say inside here. Firstly, they say that a heating system should be thoroughly cleaned and flushed before installing a new boiler. So there is a requirement for cleaning. There's also a requirement to add an inhibitor. So we're now saying that during final filling of a system, a chemical water treatment inhibitor meeting the manufacturer's specification or other appropriate standard should be added to the primary circuit to control corrosion and the formation of scale and sludge. They also now give a recommendation to include a filter on a heating system. So we're all moving in the right direction. Where else can we look? Well, we can look to the HHIC, the Heating and Hot Water Industry Council, who publish advice on their website of the correct use of water treatment. So what do they say? Well, firstly, they say that a system should be cleaned and an inhibitor added to prevent corrosion and the formation of limescale. They also say that you should fit a filter, not a recommendation. You should fit a filter to maintain the efficiency of the and reliability of the heating system. They get a little bit more technical on the types of water, and they give some specific advice. And that advice is, if you have a water softener installed in your house, you should fill up your heating system via the bypass that should be fitted when you install the water softener. So that actually shouldn't be any more onerous for you guys as installers to do when filling up a heating system. Equally importantly is they start to really recognize that there's one component within a heating system that causes you most of your problem, and that is sludge. Sludge is the magnetite, the black magnetite sludge that you find within a heating system, which is the corrosion product of iron. This is an iron oxide. It develops within a heating system, specifically within radiator panels. Very, very big source of sludge within the system. So really, when you're talking about cleaning out a system, the most important thing you need to do is to get rid of this sludge. This is what actually causes you all of your blockages, all of your breakdown, erosion of your components within a heating system. It's all about sludge. So how big, really, is that problem? Let's have a look.
Hi, it's Paul Daly from Daly Plumbing and Heating in Leeds. Today we're going to flush a system out using the new AD MagnaClean Magna Cleanse. We've got it connected into the return pipework at the boiler, and I'm just going to start now agitating the radiator to disturb the debris that's inside, and then we'll go and have a look at the pipework and see what's happening. Just been agitating the ground floor radiators, and we're just going to check the filters now and see what condition that they're in. unscrew this and let's have a look in here. Oh my goodness me. I can't believe how much dirt is in this system and how well this MagnaCleanse is extracting that dirt. It's unbelievable. All that, it weighs an absolute ton. All that's passing through the boiler. Now, at this property, it has had known problems over the last couple of years where it's been losing pressure and it's had frequent top-ups. That encourages corrosion in the system because they're diluting any protection or inhibitor that's in the system. That has got to be the best one that we've seen so far. But let's have a look at chamber 2. That is just unbelievable. Hello, we've just completed the second level and we're just going to have a look at the filter. It's just unbelievable. Can't believe how much muck's in this system, but I cannot believe as well how well this MagnaCleanse is doing. Fantastic piece of kit, removing all this dirt. You'll see from some of the thermal images that I put on to this video that some of the radiators were suffering from what we call pyramiding, and that accounts for all this magnetite that's built up. So I'll undo chamber 2. And chamber 2 is just as bad. We've just completed the final level, which is the top floor, where there's only 3 radiators on that level. Let's have a look at what we've got. So all that out of just 3 radiators. Absolutely fantastic.
What's really interesting is that within that one heating system, Paul Daly takes out nearly 5 kilograms of sludge. That's a hell of a lot of sludge to be moving around anybody's central heating system. So let's have a look to see some of the damage that can cause within a heating system. Now, this graph here looks at the failure of central heating circulator pumps from one of the European manufacturers. What's really interesting is that the 3 main causes of breakdown of the central heating circulator are all down to problems with the system water. So that's wearing of the shaft, limescale, or deposit within the heating system. All of those, 90% of the failures are down to problems with the system water. So what can we do about it? Well, obviously, the first thing we can do about it is effectively clean the heating system. Now, there are 4 elements to an effective clean. You need a chemical, you need agitation, you need heat, and you need time. And you can balance some of these elements off against each other. So you all know that if you're trying to do the washing up at home and you haven't got enough chemical, enough washing up liquid in the bowl, you have to scrub the pans a bit harder. Or you put in a bit more hot water and that speeds up your cleaning process. Now we can do exactly the same within a central heating system. So firstly, we can increase the value of the chemical. And you do that by using a premium quality optimized cleaner for central heating. So we increase the chemical part of these 4 elements. Second thing you can do is you can agitate the heating system. And the way that we do that is you can agitate by targeting the magnetite that collects at the bottom of a radiator. Third thing you can do is you can run the heating system at full system temperature. And you can do that by, even during the cleaning process, you can protect the new boiler by ensuring you have a cleaning process that has very, very effective first pass magnetic filtration on it. And if you increase all of those 3 elements, the benefit for you guys is that you can reduce the amount of time it takes to do that clean. So let's have a look at some of the cleaning process advances that have happened since 2006. Firstly, we know that you need to get sludge out of the system, so we develop a sludge targeted cleaning process. That's a cleaning process that goes in and physically removes the sludge from the system rather than simply diluting it down and sending it off to drain. We can run the system at normal system temperature with minimal risk to the new boiler. So you can install the new boiler before you undertake the clean. You can include agitation at the bottom of the radiator. And because you're now targeting that sludge, you're removing it, you want to see when it's removed so that you can optimize your speed of clean. And in order to do that, you need a window on the system. You need to be able to see when that sludge has been removed. And because you're removing the sludge, you haven't got this need to constantly be trying to dilute the system water, sending it to drain, dynamic dilution. Therefore, you minimize the amount of water you use. You're not constantly flushing to drain. And the other advantage of that is it ensures that your chemical remains concentrated within the heating system, your chemical cleaner, that is, all throughout the cleaning process. Now, a big advantage of doing that is that you can reduce your cleaning time by 50% or more. We now have sludge-targeted inhibited cleaners, which can increase or reduce the amount of time even further. And really importantly as well, you would expect to pay more money for a more modern cleaning process, when in fact it's the other way around. You'll pay about a third for a MagnaCleanse process as what you would typically pay for a power flushing machine. You would add a magnetic filter for ongoing system protection. And you would confirm that the clean has been done correctly using the fast, accurate water test. So let's have a look at what a best practice cleaning approach looks like, incorporating a good chemical, targeted agitation, and running the system at system temperature.
MagnaCleanse transforms traditional power flushing. It sets the standard for best practice maintenance and energy efficiency for central heating systems. With MagnaCleanse, it's now possible to carry out a system flush from as little as 2 hours. It delivers effective results with ongoing system protection. Let's take a closer look. This boiler has been overheating and cutting out. A number of the radiators are experiencing cold spots. The thermostat has been creeping higher and higher to keep the room temperatures at the required levels. MagnaCleanse has been recommended and installation of a MagnaClean filter for ongoing protection. Complete all relevant preliminary safety checks. Isolate the system and drain. In order to achieve the best protection for the boiler, it's recommended that MagnaCleanse Rapid Flush Filter and MagnaClean are connected to the return pipe of the system. Installing MagnaClean Professional 2 is quick and can be achieved in a couple of minutes once the system's drained. After draining, mark a 150mm section of pipe. Remove lower isolation valve nut and olive and secure to lower pipe connection. The slip socket design on the valve connector enables easy installation. Ensure both compression fittings are fully tightened. Remove the valve alignment tool. Replace with the quick release trigger and canister. Remove the filter and attach the MagnaCleanse hoses between the rapid flush filter and the MagnaCleanse hose to valve connector. Add ADI's MC5 cleaner to the system. This assists in breaking down the sludge and lifting and carrying the debris back to the MagnaCleanse Rapid Flush filter. With MagnaCleanse, the chemical is heated, enhancing the performance of MC5, as the reaction rate doubles with every 10 degrees increase in temperature. Refill and pressurize the system, ensuring all radiators are half full. Turn on heating system, all radiators open, until the radiators are hot at the bottom and cold at the top. Turn off any bypass valves and all the radiators, leaving only one radiator open at a time. With the system running, use AD's VibraClean tool attached to an SDS drill set to hammer-only mode and agitate each radiator for 15 to 20 seconds. When using the VibraClean agitator with the MagnaCleanse process, more sludge is removed in 20 seconds than 30 minutes of operation without VibraClean. The filter consists of a unique swirl chamber, in the center of which sits a powerful magnet. The high-efficiency filter removes virtually all suspended boiler debris in one pass. When satisfied, open up the next radiator. Turn off the treated radiator and repeat the process until all radiators are clean. Isolate and clean the rapid flush filter as required. Using PPE, that is, gloves and a paper towel, wipe off any magnetite into a bucket or waste bag and dispose of correctly. Drain the whole system using the drain valve, removing any residual cleanser and non-ferrous deposits. Disconnect hoses and remove the rapid flush filter. Reattach the MagnaClean domestic filter to the isolation valves. System dosing is easy. Simply use the canister as a dosing vessel to add MC1 protector into the system. Now, fill the system radiators to full, removing all air. Turn on the system and reset the controls to the customer requirements. Open any bypass valves previously closed. Before leaving the property, carry out the last job. Service the MagnaClean filter, ensuring a final check is carried out for leaks. With MagnaCleanse, the complete solution, the benefits for customers are immediate. Reduced energy heating bills by up to 6% a year. Gas savings of up to £66 per year at current prices. Reduced carbon emissions of between 200 to 300 kilograms a year. Reduced maintenance costs. Warmer radiators with a quieter, more efficient heating system. MagnaCleanse transforms traditional power flushing. It sets the standard for best practice maintenance and energy efficiency for central heating systems.
So it's not just processes that have advanced through innovation since 2006. We see advances in the chemistry that we use as well. Firstly, formulations are available now, chemical inhibitor products, chemical cleaners that treat 125 litres per bottle instead of 100 litres. Why do we do this? Well, we asked you guys. We asked installers how big the systems were that they treated, and we were told if we produced a product which treated 125 litres, that would cover about 98% of all of the systems that you would typically treat. So that means to say that you can now use the one bottle per system rule of thumb with a lot more confidence. You can have sludge targeted cleaners. So there's specifically a cleaner that goes in, lifts up the sludge, holds it within a matrix until it's ready to be delivered to the filter to be removed. We have inhibited cleaners. Now, the advantage of an inhibited cleaner is that you can put it into somebody's heating system up to a month in advance. So it starts the cleaning process, but because it's inhibited, it protects any vulnerable components at the same time. That gives you guys a lot more flexibility in determining when you need to come and do the clean once you've actually got the agreement to do the job. And also, inhibitors now can be optimized to prevent the formation of sludge in the first place. Let's have a look at what I mean by that. Now, this graph here, what this shows us is it shows us 6 inhibitors that are currently available on the UK market. And the line at point number 1 shows the point at which an inhibitor either passes or fails the Build Cert CIAS, that's the minimum performance standard for an inhibitor in the UK, in terms of its mild steel protection in soft water. So this is with aeration and with natural aeration. So you'll see the first 4 inhibitors on the left-hand side of this chart actually are so borderline with this standard that they fall below the minimum performance requirement for this standard. Actually, really shouldn't be being sold. The next product is just a little bit better than the minimum performance standard. But because us at AD realize and appreciate that the most important element within an inhibitor is to ensure that it prevents the formation of sludge in the first place, we optimize our product to make sure that it's significantly better than anything else in terms of protecting the mild steel, that's the radiator panels, and stops them generating the sludge in the first place. The other thing that we do is we performance test our products every single batch that we make. So you can be sure that if you put our product in, you're getting between 8 to 10 times, as this graph shows, the protection that you're being asked to provide as an inhibitor manufacturer to meet the build cert standard requirements. Other advances, well, clearly since 2006 there have been advances in analytical chemistry, which has allowed us to put together a very good process lab and analytical lab for water testing services. So you can now confirm how well a job you've done, and you can show a certificate to your customer. This is a very fast service. From the point that your water sample arrives at our laboratory, we can turn that round in less than 24 hours. It's an independently accredited lab. It's UCAS certified, so that means to say that all of the testing is performed to the highest standards for any analytical laboratory inside the UK. And because it's an internal lab, that means that we get much better cost control, so we're making this process affordable as well as the most accurate. So what AD have done is we've rolled together all of the benefits of the improved cleaning technology together with our improved formulation chemicals and our testing laboratory to come up with what we refer to as the AD best practice approach for cleaning and treating a heating system. And industry recognized this, and in 2015, AD was awarded by HMV the Service and Maintenance Initiative of the Year for the AD best practice water treatment approach. So let's have a little look at what value this is to you as an installer. Well, the first thing is you have to spend less money to get started, to get equipped to go and do best practice system cleaning. You have an ability to demonstrate how good your cleaning job is to your customer. And we all know the value of seeing something with your own eyes. So your customer can immediately see the benefit of what you're doing and get that buy-in for you. You spend less time on site. Less time on site means it actually costs you less money to do the job. So you can actually increase your revenue whilst charging your customer less to do exactly the same job as a power flush. But let's not forget the value to the other players within our industry. There's obvious value for the boiler manufacturers as well, with reduced warranty call-outs up to 37%. The assurance of adequate protection regardless of the system size. This is what they get by having a 125-litre chemical inhibitor. Optimizes the component protection, helps to extend the boiler life, and of course has a beneficial effect on enhancing the brand reputation. And most of all, we're all doing this for the homeowner. So let's just consider the value for the homeowner. Reduced energy bills by up to about 6% a year. On current energy costs, that'll save them around about £66 per year. Reduced call-out fees, reduced maintenance, estimated to be around about 37%. Reduced carbon emissions, which is important to all of us today. Helps extend their boiler life, and of course, gives them the assurance of heating when they want it, when they need it. So, in summary, technology has evolved in the last 6 years, last 10 years since 2006. The focus has shifted away from boiler breakdown onto system breakdown. The problem is in the system, the problem isn't in the boiler. The magnetite sludge has been identified as the major cause of breakdown within heating systems. There have been innovations in cleaner formulation, in inhibitor formulation, and in sludge-focused cleaning methodologies and equipment. And modern system treatment regime brings added value to you as installers, to the OEMs, and to the householder. So I'm just going to leave you with a question. Which technology is the best fit for you, your business, and your customers? Thank you.
Well, Neil, I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of in excess of 500 of our colleagues that's actually joined us on this first ever webinar. We've all learned, I'm sure, a great deal, and if I can just reinforce to everybody in terms of your questions, to direct those through Twitter in terms of CIPHE Live. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Your presentation, I think, just demonstrates what we're trying to achieve at CIPHE, and it ticks boxes for everyone concerned. It's a win-win, as I've actually experienced in the presentation that you've professionally delivered. It's a win-win for the trade in terms of improved systems, in terms of effective cleaning, but also for the consumer as well, with the importance focused on environmental and also economical as well from that aspect. In addition to that, I've also learned quite a bit as well in terms of how to improve my cleaning techniques in terms of my pans at home. So thank you very much for that. Again, I'd like to thank, on behalf of everybody, Neil for joining us today. Thank you very much, Neil, again. Thank you. Are there any questions that we've actually got from the audience that we'd like to ask Neil whilst he's sat with me at this moment in time?
Thank you. Yes, I have a few questions for Neil. Thank you, Neil. First question for you. Do you need to power flush as well as doing a flush with a MagnaCleanse?
So the question is, do I need to do a power flush and a MagnaCleanse?
Correct.
No, actually you don't. You do see a lot of people today still use a power flush machine with then an added strap-on magnetic filter to improve the power flushing process. But actually you don't need to do that. A power flush works adequately well without the need for a power flush. By doing that, you're effectively increasing the your original outlay for equipment, but you're not really reducing the amount of time that you take on site because you still go through all the dynamic flushing. Absolutely, you don't need it.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Much appreciated. Another question for you. Why hasn't BS 7593 been updated since 2006?
Okay, BS 7593 was originally written back in 1992, was updated in 2006. One of the problems that we have with our industry is there's been a change in British Standard since the early days. British Standard was a government organisation and standards were written for the benefit of everybody. However, nowadays, the British Standard organisation has to generate money from the standards that it develops. And unfortunately, there aren't enough people going out and buying the standard to really encourage British Standards to spend the time and money necessary to rewrite the standard with the most up-to-date best practices. we are as an industry trying to convince British Standard to do that. Hopefully we'll be successful.
Thank you, Neil. One more question, if you don't mind. And the question is, what do you see happening to system protection in the next 10 years?
Oh, now that's a very interesting question. I think protection of heating systems is going to have to get smart. So I think we're going to see self-diagnosing systems that will actually tell you as an installer when or whether the system needs cleaning, and to actually send you a message to tell you that your customer's system needs attention.
Neil, on behalf of CIPHE and our membership and our people that have joined us tonight, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mentioned earlier on in the opening of our webinar the importance of our continuous improvement program at CIPHE, which hopefully this evening we're demonstrating by this event. To join me this evening, I'm pleased to welcome Richard Soper, who is the Director of CIPHE for International Developments. And Richard, I'm sure you've got a number of exciting communications to reach out to our membership this evening. So you're very welcome.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Paul. Well, first of all, on behalf of myself, thanks very much, Neil. Very enjoyable and only the first of many to come. And I think that's where maybe I should start, really, before I go into the rest of the presentation. This is the first. We start on a series of webinars from September onwards. So in September, we will be focusing on particularly on vulnerability, on scalding, which will be supported by the BMA, which is the Bathroom Manufacturers Association. Then in October, we'll focus on carbon monoxide, again, working with HHIC. And finally, in November, we'll focus on cybersecurity, on controls. So we've got some interesting subjects to come up, and I hope that you'll look out for those dates and pass them on to your friends. Remembering that this is not just open to CIPHE members, this is open to the industry. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that, about the importance of raising the awareness of being proud to be in our profession. So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about what I've been endeavouring to do since I entered the University of the Third Age, in other words, retirement, that I decided to put something back. I want to put something back into our industry. And I've been member of the CIPHE for a number of years. And I wanted to really bring and extol where I started from and give encouragement for both young and retrained people to come into our industry. Now, particularly, this is really important to me personally, because the same as what Paul has said to you earlier, we came through a very similar startup. I came through a 5-year startup apprenticeship. The first 3 years was on the trade apprenticeship with West Midlands Gas, which now is, of course, British Gas. And then I did my next 2 years both in gas utilisation on interim final. And they were really the bedrock, in reality, of my career startup. And I think it's very important for me also to put across that I also made a decision very quickly, and I was very lucky that central heating at that time was just coming into the fore in the early 70s, and I actually became a central heating troubleshooter at that time before moving across into marketing and my career, which has then gone through, I'm very lucky to have worked for exemplary companies during my career process. So back to now, what are we doing? With Kevin Wellman, the CEO, we put together an external affairs group, which basically are to work together to support and to raise the awareness, not just to be proud and professional, but also to focus on what we're here to do, and that's the safety of the public. Now, we have a very important part to play. We are the tradesmen who actually go into the consumer's home, and not only do we fulfill a trade, but we also fulfill a lot of support and actual, further than that, are a community worker in ways working inside our community. But let's go back a little bit to the External Affairs Group. So the External Affairs Group includes myself, and my job really is to try and drive the future opportunities for our industry, Paul is head of the Industrial Associates, which you've already gone through. And then, of course, we've got two other members of our team at the moment. One is Yvonne Ogilvie, who is the CEO of the BMA. We're back now to the Bathroom Manufacturers Association, and another young university of the third age called Roger Webb, who's joined us from the HHIC, and he's covering really the heating and controls. And hopefully in the coming months then, we have another 1 or 2 new members come into that external affairs group. All of us are voluntary, and all of us trying to put something back, having a very important part of our career. Now, what we're also doing is we get an incredible amount of support in the industry. And I think not only through our own journal and also our own work that we're doing in lobbying and working with various other networking groups, but particularly we've had the strength of some of the trade press come behind us, and all the major magazines are in fact giving us at least a page per month for the full part of 2016, and hopefully then we'll move into 2017, focused on the issues that have been talked about today. Technical papers, which has been done exemplary today, but also now working and doing major stories on installers. In other words, what does it mean to you, your role, your job, what you do in society, and what do you bring? Remember, we're not just people putting in heating or plumbing equipment. In reality, we are fulfilling comfort to the customer. And I think this is very important. Paul mentioned earlier a few parts of that. And so from that, the External Affairs Group will promote heavily. So we launch very soon, we launch in May our apprentice competition. So please look out for it, please get involved. This gives an opportunity for both new and retrained people to show what they can do within the industry. That will culminate into our first Industrial Associates Apprentice Competition award ceremony, which will be on the 17th of November at the House of Commons. So there's a lot more to come. I've mentioned webinars, I've mentioned apprenticeships, but particularly I want to come back to the most in my heart, which is maybe one of the most important things. I made a decision when I was a young man, with the aid of my father, in focusing on doing a trade. I chose to become within our industry, in the heating and plumbing industry. It's fulfilled a lot for me and given me an incredible opportunity to have a great career over the years. And now, as I've said, I want to put more in as I move into this third age. So thanks for listening to me. Please write to me. Please come through to us at CIPHE, and please be proud to be a professional. Back over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Richard. And before you leave us again, we have this opportunity, Richard, in terms of any questions to be directed directly through Twitter or through the other facilities. So I've read out the actual Twitter address, but it's CIPHE Live. Do we have any questions for Richard at this stage?
Thank you. Richard, yeah, I've got one question. I just wonder if you could just possibly clarify a bit more, or just give a bit more information about that apprentice competition that you mentioned. A couple of people were just asking if you could just clarify that for us. That would be grand.
Yep, thanks very much. It's focused on 3 areas. So there's 3 apprentice awards, which I said will be on the 17th. There will be one based on the plumbing, in other words, bathroom and water solutions. There'll be one on the heating and cooling. And the third one is very focused and a very important part of our institute, which is vulnerability. So we've got 3. So one on, as I said, on the plumbing and water solutions. Second is on heating, and the third one is on vulnerability. There are 3 areas which are very important for the apprentice. Number one is really illustrating what their work, what they've done inside a consumer's premises, and supported by material from the company they work for or the fitter they're working with during their apprenticeship. That's number one. Number 2 is to illustrate their education through their NVQ levels. In other words, illustrate how far they've got, and in certain cases, whether they've been illustrated in higher awards around their education. The third one, which I think is fundamental for all of us, is consumer recognition. So in other words, a consumer putting forward that young person, that young man or woman, or that retrained man or woman, what have they done in that consumer's property that's made a difference? And I add on to that, just adding on this issue of vulnerability, which all of us have to take a very important part of our role in this industry.
Thank you very much again, Richard, for
Thanks
joining
very
us.
much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Well, just finally, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome, in terms of taking us through the future of CIPHE, and I'm joined this evening by our Chief Executive Officer, Kevin Wellman. Kevin, you're welcome.
Once again, I'd like to reiterate my own personal thanks to Neil for a really excellent presentation, and also to AD for kindly sponsoring this first inaugural webinar, technical webinar. Whilst I'm here, I thought I'd also like to give a quick update on some of the Institute's activities throughout the year, as well as some of the other exciting things which are happening in the months ahead. Now, firstly, if we go back to February, and Richard mentioned our engagement with the industry media, and we've certainly started to see a lot more activity with our promotional initiatives, and I will come back to that in a moment. In April, we had our first international seminar, which was hosted in Hong Kong, and Richard very kindly acted as chairman for that particular series of presentations, which, in addition to being supported by over 80 Institute members, there were leading UK manufacturers in attendance helping out with those presentations. So there's been some really good technical initiatives going on there, which has been certainly new for the Institute. Now, also in moving now to the July period, then we do have a meeting coming up with our industrial associates, which is also going to be launching some further new initiatives, which I'll be able to talk about later in the year. Details will certainly be featured within our journal, P&HE, and also the website. But more importantly, another great initiative for us is that from the 1st of July, we will be able to start to promote chartered engineers, chartered engineering registration through the Engineering Council. We are one of 36 professional engineering institutes, and we are qualified to register engineering technicians, incorporated engineers and chartered engineers. Now, within that process, we have the ability now to encourage people's career paths from apprentice all the way through to chartered engineers. So I think that's a wonderful occasion for people to actually pursue their career development. As part of that, we also have our links to our e-learning website. We launched our e-learning academy last year, and that there are more and more modules being added to that all the time. And so it's an opportunity for members to access those sort of technologies, again, in which leading manufacturers are supporting us with things there. As we move towards later on in the year, and Richard also mentioned the work with our apprentice competition, just to reiterate with that, that is going to be held, the actual finals of that, in the Houses of Commons in November on November the 17th. And so again, I would say watch this space. The main thing is to encourage the youngsters of today and the plumbing and heating professionals of tomorrow to actually get involved with these competitions, because it really does help to promote the ambassadors of our industry in a great way. Now, I said I'd come back to some of our promotional work and activities as well. Again, through the work and support from the industry trade magazines, we've actually seen an increase of fourfold the amount of publicity and PR that we've actually achieved this year compared to the same time last year. So again, many thanks to all our industry partners for that. We are focusing on two particular campaigns at the moment. And as Richard said earlier about vulnerability, just to remind you that as a CIPHE, we are a professional body of individuals. We are the chartered body for the plumbing and heating industry, but we're also an educational charity. And through that particular work, we are wanting to promote and to safeguard those people who are vulnerable in society. Now, we are aware that there are over 6 million people deemed to be vulnerable, certainly throughout the UK. And I think that we can all work collectively to try to make the plumbing and heating world a better place for all those people who are deemed vulnerable. In addition to our work in supporting consumers, we are also promoting professionalism, and within the CIPHE journal and certainly some of the articles appearing in the industry trade press, you will notice a lot more focus on proud to be a professional. I'd just like to conclude by saying, if you are proud to be a professional, whether you're involved in the plumbing or heating sector as an individual, then please join the Institute's campaign to support better plumbing and heating engineering. If you're not a member, then go onto the website, download a membership form, and please join the CIPHE. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. Thank you. Again, through the links that we've got in terms of Twitter, etc., I'm sure there are some questions, Kevin, that the audience would like to ask.
Thank you, Kevin. Much appreciated. Yeah, I've got one question here. Somebody's picked up on your mention of the e-learning website, and they've asked specifically, how many modules are there on the e-learning website, please?
Gosh, right. Well, firstly, the e-learning academy was launched just over a year ago, and we've received fantastic support from manufacturers. We actually have just over 230 modules, and that covers all aspects of plumbing, drainage, heating. There's some safety modules on there as well. The combined total of hours, if somebody was to start studying those and they carried on throughout the whole package of 230 odd, then it would take 600 hours to actually get through all of those. So again, there's plenty there for everybody. Certainly from the college's point of view, then they're saying it's a fantastic aid for students and the apprentices of today. So again, there's something in there for everybody.
Thank you once again, Kevin. Well, hopefully everyone's found this beneficial this evening. As I mentioned at the very beginning, this is our inaugural launch of webinars. We'd like to again place on record our special thanks to AD for their support, and in particular in respect of the presentation that we've had, which we felt very, very interesting in terms of Neil, the Global Technical Director of AD. So again, Neil, thank you very much indeed for the presentation. We're very passionate about developing the future and the prospects for the installation trade, but equally for the consumer in terms of CIPHE. And that is a 360-degree continuous improvement program that we're committed to. And as you heard from Richard and you've heard from Kevin, this is very voluntary, and it's all about improving systems and improving the value that we can provide through the assistance that we've got from manufacturers, but also the assistance that we've got from the merchants as well. And the most important element of that is our installation partners, the tradesmen. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you.